to this knowledge event on measuring the green wealth of nations, natural capital, and economic productivity in Africa. I am Professor Kevin Chika Urama, the Vice President and Chief Economist for Economic Governance and Knowledge Management at the African Development Bank Group. President Akinwumi Adesina, dear governors, executive directors, senior management, and delegates to these annual meetings. I'm very pleased to serve as a moderator for this very important event today. Much of Africa's natural capital remain largely unexploited, and their values and services they provide are typically poorly measured or sometimes completely unmeasured as part of Africa's country's wealth. As a result, the value of Africa's economies continues to be underestimated amidst the abundance of Africa's green wealth. So this event is for us to brainstorm on how we can better value Africa's natural capital, measure it, include it in the accounting matrices of nations, and hence use it to rebase Africa's GDP. If we succeed in doing this, we can improve the social accounting matrices and GDP of countries, and possibly the risk ratings of countries we have been talking about during this meeting. Before we go into the event, let us watch a beautiful video on the subject.
Africa is changing rapidly. 10 of the world's fastest growing economies are in Africa, but it's not changing quickly enough. Extreme poverty remains the world's highest, while manufacturing employment is actually declining as a share of total employment. Change is all around, but how can we move away from unequal growth and towards a transformation that is fair, sustainable, and that can enrich the lives of all Africans? Now is the time to transform Africa at scale and at speed. The continent's growing population requires substantial resources from the global financial system, and so far it is not delivering. Due to insufficient resource mobilization, African countries have resorted to international capital markets, often on unfavorable terms that create debt vulnerability. Africa's debt has nearly doubled since 2010, and servicing it is now absorbing about 11% of government revenues. Poor credit ratings have made the international system even more unfair. African countries now carry interest rates that are substantially higher than more advanced economies due to perceived risks. Debt restructuring has become too complex, protracted, and costly, and poses a serious risk for countries dealing with debt distress. The present system's special drawing rights skews emergency funds towards developed countries instead of towards those who most need it. Reforming the global financial system will unleash the resources to finance at scale what Africa urgently needs for significant economic transformation. Welcome to the 2024 Annual Meeting's first thematic knowledge event. Together, let's explore how to achieve real financial reform. How can we make the system nimbler and enable it to close the rich-poor financing gap? How can Africa's resources be mobilized and receive their full valuation? Together, let's innovate and create reforms with transformational impact that can assure a fair, sustainable, and enriching future for all.
Big round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Without much further ado, let me welcome to the podium a man that does not need introduction, Africa's optimist-in-chief, Africa's evangelist-in-chief, Africa's development expert, unrivaled, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the president of the African Development Bank Group, to give his opening remarks.
Their governors, honorable ministers, executive directors of the African Development Bank Group, their colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I wish to thank you for taking time for being here this morning for this high-level session on Africa's green wealth, revaluing the GDP of African countries by accounting for its natural capital. We live in a period of climate change in which the control of emissions, of the capture of carbon, and the preservation of biodiversity are critical for sustainable development. Africa has some of the largest sources of natural capital in the world. Africa has 40% of the world's clean energy potential, 65% of the world's arable land yet to be cultivated, 25% of biodiversity, 20% of the world's tropical forest area. Take, for example, the Congo Basin. It is one of the largest zones of sequestration of carbon in the world. The peatlands of the Congo Basin store 29 billion tons of carbon. That is equivalent to approximately about 3 years' worth of global greenhouse gas emissions straight out of the Congo Basin. The basin also absorbs about 1.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year. In a world where carbon therefore is highly priced, and where Africa's contribution to global public good for tackling climate change with its vast resources of carbon sinks, it is befuddling, quite honestly, that Africa's vast natural capital has been undervalued. This natural capital is not taken into consideration in valuing the GDP of African countries. For example, the GDP of Africa was estimated at $2.5 trillion in 2018. This was 5 times lower, 2.5 times lower than the estimated value of its natural capital, estimated at $6.2 trillion, which partly includes some valuation of ecosystem services. Basically, therefore, while Africa is rich in natural resources, it is not considered in the determination of its wealth. Yet, these natural resources provide essential environmental services, such as carbon sequestration, pollution control, and the retention of soil fertility, which are critical for sustaining human existence. In a world wherein the focus is on greening of economies, the continued use of GDP as we measure it, without taking into consideration the huge values of environmental services provided by Africa's vast forests, hugely underestimates the green wealth of Africa. There is no reason why Africa should be greenly poor. Africa should be greenly wealthy by proper valuation of its vast contributions to global environmental services that are critical for tackling climate change and preserving biodiversity. Africa, therefore, cannot be nature-rich and cash-poor. When the value of Africa's vast forests and environmental services are properly valued, the size of its rebased GDP, by that I mean taking into consideration, the value of the size of its rebased GDP, taking this into account, will be much higher. is debt to environmentally re-indexed GDP, which is green wealth, that takes into consideration these natural environmental capital services will therefore be much lower. That means that the countries can have larger headroom to take more financing and invest those financing in the further greening of the economies, which is what we all want. Such a move is therefore very important for recomputing its overall debt sustainability. In addition, of the total value of global green bonds, which is estimated at $4.4 trillion globally, Africa issues less than 0.15%. A rebasing of Africa's green GDP will attract significant amounts of global green bonds to the continent. Greening of the GDP will also have other benefits, including the development of carbon markets in Africa at country and regional levels, and the proper pricing of carbon, which will boost revenues for African economies. The additional green wealth generated will also be used to invest more in the greening of African economies. The proper valuation of Africa's green GDP is where the trillions of dollars we talk about moving from billions to trillions, that's where the trillions are going to come from endogenously on this continent, based on proper valuation, which will come from to boost the wealth and financing of the continent. Unfortunately today, several African countries are giving away their vast amounts of land for carbon credits. Now, while this may generate some additional financing, it needs to be understood that Africa is a carbon price taker, and therefore is shortchanged by that process. While the price of carbon in Europe is high and could be as high as $100 per ton, due to the strict emission trading standards, carbon price in Africa, however, is as low as $10. You can see the divergence on that. The taking over of Africa's vast areas of land that is rich in carbon is what I call carbon grab. And they have 5 consequences. First, the countries are being underpaid for the carbon due to the undervaluation of Africa's carbon sinks. That's the first point. Second point, the sequestered carbon on the lands can no longer be used as part of the nation's nationally determined contributions. Third, the countries lose sovereignty over their lands. Fourth, the carbon sequestered over these lands and forests can no longer be used to rebase and revalue the green GDP of the countries. And fifth, the ongoing carbon grab in Africa is a lose-lose proposition. Therefore, it is important and it is time for Africa's green environmental assets to be properly priced to allow the continent to turn its massive green assets into wealth through their inclusion in the green GDP for Africa. This will raise massive financial resources for the continent, spur greater green investments, support the turning of economies green, and provide better policies for greening of African economies for sustainable development and drive sustainable debt management pathways for African countries. Clearly, therefore, the significantly higher revenues that Africa will generate from the proper valuation of its carbon sinks and environmental services will allow it to be able to service its debts while remaining green. This discussion you'll be having today is to get further perspectives and views on this issue. Already, the heads of state have called for this, and President Sassou Nguesso of the Republic of Congo is chairing this particular initiative together, as you had him yesterday, with President William Ruto. This came out of the Africa Climate Summit that was held here in Nairobi, Kenya. And I'm co-chairing there with them. There is a group of 11 heads of state that call themselves C11 that are on this particular issue, and we've been asked as African Development Bank to help to advance this methodologically. I just want to close by saying that what we are talking about here today comes out of this Africa Climate Summit of the leaders, which states, and I quote, "We recognize that Africa's vast forests, especially the Congo Basin forest, are the largest carbon sinks globally, and important ecosystem services provided by Africa's vast savannas, the Miombo, woodlands, the peatlands, mangroves, and coral reefs. It is time that Africa's natural capital wealth is properly measured by recognizing its contributions to reducing global carbon emissions. We call for the revaluation of the gross domestic product of Africa through the proper valuation of its abundant natural capital and ecosystem services, including but not limited to its vast forests that sequester carbon to unlock new sources of wealth for Africa. This will entail the use of natural resource and accounting and development of national accounting standards. And on this particular issue, we have started engaging discussions with the international ISSB on this particular issue. So once again, thank you very much for coming this morning. Thank you very much, Vice President and Chief Economist, for organizing this session. It is very clear that we have to turn the nature assets of Africa into wealth for the continent to boost the valuation of its GDP. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming.
This demands a big round of applause for Mr. President Akinwumi Ayodeji Adesina. The call is very clear. Africa cannot be natural resource rich and cash poor. Stop the carbon grab. Make Africa's capital work for Africa's development. Proper valuation of Africa's natural capital and rebasing of Africa's GDP would help green transitions, risk ratings of countries, and probably make African countries natural resource rich and cash rich. On that note, let me call on our keynote speaker, Dr. Fatih Birol, if he is in the room. No, not yet here. So let me then transition quickly to the next session, which is a panel discussion on this subject. Let me call Honorable Sidi Keita to join us on the panel. Sidi, is he in the room? Not yet. And Miss Shanti Robin. Thank you. A big round of applause for Miss Shanti Robin. Shanti was appointed Deputy Assistant Secretary, Multilateral Financial Affairs and Development, Directorate General of the Treasury, Ministry for the Economy, Finance, and Industrial and Digital Sovereignty of France in December 2023, having previously served as Deputy Director for the European Affairs, Directorate General of the Treasury in the Ministry of Finance, Economy and Recovery in France from July 2021 to November 2023. And before that, she served as head of Regional Economic Service at the French Embassy in Madrid, Spain, between 2019 and 2021. She's also an alumnus of the National School of Administration, ENA, and the Institute of Political Studies of Paris, in France. Welcome, Ms. Shanti Robin. Next, let me call to the stage the Minister, Mateus Magala. Honorable Mateus Magala is a Mozambican economist, engineer, and politician who served as the Minister of Transport and Communications of Mozambique since June 2022. He has previously served as the Vice President for Corporate Services and Human Resources of the African Development Bank from September 2018 until his appointment as a cabinet minister in Mozambique. Magala is also a former chairman of the Electricidade de Mozambique, the country's electricity distributor. Honorable Magala is an alumnus of the University of Sydney and Victoria University. You are very much welcome. Our next panelist is Mr. Fahad Hamad Al-Shulati. Is he in the room? I think we are running short of panelists today. Okay, so as we wait for that panelist, let us also welcome Professor Dr. Patrick Verkujen. Is he also in the room? Not yet. And Professor Lema Senbet, is he also in the room? Not yet. So I think we are running very short of panelists today. So let's just go on to the conversation with the colleagues that we have on the panel. Thank you. What concrete steps do you think that the African and developing countries can undertake to transform their natural capital into wealth so that they are both natural capital rich and cash rich?
Merci beaucoup, monsieur le professeur. Je pense que je vais peut-être pouvoir prendre mon temps aujourd'hui, finalement, plus que je ne l'avais prévu. Non, je vais essayer de ne pas vous ennuyer, en tout cas. Enfin, je voulais d'abord vous dire merci beaucoup de m'avoir invité à prendre part à cette discussion sur la nature et sa valorisation, autrement dit, sur le capital et la richesse naturelle. Je me faisais une remarque en écoutant les propos liminaires, à savoir qu'il y a un sujet qui est la mesure et le constat, et puis pour valoriser cette mesure et ce constat, et ça vaut pour les ressources naturelles, il y a l'action. Alors d'abord, revenons à qu'est-ce que le capital naturel? Cela a été dit, ce sont les forêts, les sols, l'eau, la biodiversité, autant d'éléments qui sont très présents en Afrique et qui sont fondamentaux pour le développement économique et le bien-être des populations. Alors, je souhaite partager avec vous deux mots qui pourraient répondre à votre question, qui sont à mon avis les deux mots clés, les deux étapes pour réussir cette transformation de la nature en richesse. Ces deux mots clés, c'est protéger et valoriser. Alors, je vais développer un petit peu ces deux idées. D'abord, il faut protéger le capital naturel pour empêcher sa disparition. On voit bien que ça serait désastreux à la fois pour les communautés locales et en plus, ça priverait l'économie de ressources durables indispensables pour la croissance durable dans le temps. Donc il faut d'abord protéger le capital naturel, mais il faut aussi valoriser ces ressources. Et pour cela, je pense que les États doivent promouvoir des stratégies qui lient la conservation de la biodiversité à des bénéfices économiques tangibles. Le président parlait des services rendus à la nature, des services environnementaux. Et donc ça, on a bien les deux éléments. On a la nature, l'environnement et comment valoriser. Et d'ailleurs, c'est cette vision que la France a défendue lors des négociations du cadre mondial sur la biodiversité de Kunming-Montréal. Et c'est cette vision que nous défendons et continuons à promouvoir notamment pour la COP 16. Alors vous me direz, comment protection et valorisation peuvent aller de pair? Comme vous savez, on aime bien dire que les choses sont faisables en même temps. Oui, on peut faire en même temps, protéger et valoriser. Et donc je pense qu'il n'y a rien de mieux que quelques exemples. J'en prendrai donc quelques-uns. Tout d'abord, la préservation des forêts. C'est un objectif qui nous est particulièrement cher à la France. Comme vous le savez peut-être, nous avons organisé l'an dernier un One Forest Summit au Gabon. Et nous pensons que la mise en place de pratiques de gestion durable des forêts est essentielle. Par ailleurs, je vais prendre un autre exemple, nous soutenons fortement une initiative qui est le Congo Basin Statement. Le Congo Basin Statement vise à renforcer la coopération internationale pour la préservation et la gestion durable des forêts du bassin du Congo. Ça a été dit, en Afrique, le bassin du Congo, c'est un des 3 grands bassins forestiers mondiaux. C'est essentiel pour la captation du carbone, essentiel pour la lutte contre le changement climatique. Et donc voilà, ce type d'initiative internationale est aussi clé. Un autre exemple, l'agroforesterie responsable. Voilà une façon, une pratique de transformer le capital naturel en richesse. Ça permet d'allier gestion durable des forêts, intégration des arbres, des forêts dans les systèmes agricoles, et plutôt qu'empêcher le développement agricole, ça permet même de gérer des revenus supplémentaires. Donc là, par exemple, je pense qu'il ne faut pas opposer forêt et agriculture qui permet de générer ce qui est nécessaire pour nourrir les populations, mais au contraire, on peut bien allier forêt, agriculture durable, revenus et sécurité alimentaire. On pourrait citer beaucoup d'autres exemples d'activités économiques durables. Je pense au tourisme responsable, à la biocosmétique, etc. Enfin, troisième exemple, je pense qu'il faut utiliser le levier du secteur privé. Il faut en effet catalyser les financements et pour cela, valoriser le carbone, ça a été dit aussi, et par exemple mettre en place des crédits carbone à haute valeur environnementale. Voilà un moyen de passer encore une fois de la nature à sa valorisation. Et la France, conjointement avec le Royaume-Uni, a lancé pour cela une feuille de route mondiale pour des crédits biodiversité. Alors, vous le voyez, j'ai essayé d'illustrer ce qui me semble les 2 mots clés à retenir, protéger et valoriser. Et cela passe par des stratégies nationales, des gouvernements, un engagement fort, des stratégies qui doivent être ambitieuses, exigeantes, qui sont nécessaires, qui doivent être mises en place par les gouvernements pour concilier ces 2 impératifs. Encore une fois, ils sont conciliables. Préservation de la nature, bénéfice économique. Et cela est possible et sera rendu possible encore plus grâce à l'action des banques multilatérales de développement, par exemple, bien sûr, la Banque africaine de développement, en travaillant étroitement avec les fonds verticaux de préservation du climat et de l'environnement, qui ont un rôle clé à jouer en la matière. Donc voilà ce que je pense, monsieur le modérateur, pour la planète, pour l'Afrique, et parce que nous n'avons qu'une seule planète, One Planet. Merci.
Thank you very much. The call also very clear. One key strategy to protect and to develop. Keywords, preservation of forests, beefing up agroforestry for sustainable management of forests and producing all the other ecosystem services that forests do give to us, but also harnessing biodiversity credits and an ambitious strategy for protecting and developing our natural capital. Another big round of applause to Ms. Shanti, please. And then let me transition to you, Honorable Magala. In your own view, Mozambique is a very natural resource-rich country. How would Mozambique turn this into wealth?
Muito obrigado, Professor Rama, por organizar este importante encontro de mentes.
Just a minute, please. Just checking the translation. Is it working for everyone?
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's okay. Dizia eu, muito obrigado, professor Urama, por organizar este importante encontro de mentes e por convidar-me para participar neste debate. Também quero agradecer ao presidente Adesina pela sua liderança exemplar em assuntos tão importantes para a África, para a transformação da África, para a inclusão da África, para a prosperidade, em assuntos importantes para o nosso futuro. Ele tem tomado uma liderança que é uma liderança positiva e aquela que pode nos conduzir a desenvolver o nosso continente como nós pretendemos que seja. Com a sua permissão, moderador, eu vou me cingir a alguns aspectos da sua questão para validar a relevância e a pertinência da discussão que estamos a ter hoje. Primeiro, queria dizer que eu completamente concordo com o que o presidente Adesina e outros chefes de Estado disseram aqui sobre como é que o GDP é medido. Penso que há uma nova alternativa, tendo em conta as exigências do momento sobre as mudanças climáticas e a necessidade de a gente proteger a única casa comum, que é o planeta. Portanto, eu penso que a questão de incluir o capital natural torna-se pertinente no cálculo da riqueza das nações. O capital natural, entendendo como as florestas, a biodiversidade de que se falou também, as terras aráveis da agricultura, as águas, os recursos minerais, etc. Isso é muito importante que se tenha em conta no cálculo da riqueza das nações. É por isso que políticas prudentes, políticas que promovam o bem-estar de todos, a justiça social, a equidade, são fundamentais neste processo da geração ou da sustentabilidade da riqueza das nações. No caso de Moçambique, gostaria de dar ou falar sobre duas questões ou dois desenvolvimentos importantes. O primeiro desenvolvimento é que nós aprovamos em 2023 a Estratégia Nacional de Transição Energética de Moçambique 2023-2050. Esta estratégia de transição identifica 4 pilares para a nossa contribuição neste debate atual, pertinente e importante. O primeiro pilar é que nós devemos desenvolver o máximo possível os recursos renováveis para a nossa utilização energética. O segundo, devemos promover a industrialização verde. E o terceiro, temos que atingir o acesso universal em 2030. E o quarto pilar, temos que promover o transporte verde. A segunda questão que eu queria falar é sobre a promoção da floresta de Miombo. O presidente Adesina falou dessa questão. É uma questão que para nós é muito importante. Vim a saber que Miombo é uma palavra em Swahili que identifica uma floresta específica. Esta floresta atravessa 8 países em África, entre eles Angola, Botsuana, Malau, Moçambique, Namíbia, Tanzânia, Zâmbia, Zimbábue, onde é casa de cerca de 300 milhões de pessoas. E dessas pessoas, 40 milhões vivem ao longo da bacia de Zambeze, que também é atravessado pela floresta do Miombo. Então, e os cálculos mostram que em 2025, essa gente vivendo ao longo da bacia pode atingir o número de 50 milhões. A floresta de Miombo é casa ou é habitat para elefantes, leões, muita biodiversidade aí que existe, incluindo madeiras preciosas. Estão lá nesta floresta de Miombo, que tem muito valor econômico e social. É também o Miombo a parte ou uma oportunidade de emprego para muitas famílias rurais africanas que vivem ao longo dessas florestas. Portanto, em 2022, o presidente Filipe Jacinto Nyusi e o presidente Mnangagwa encontraram-se com outros representantes de Angola, Botsuana, DRC, Malawi, Namíbia, Tanzânia, Congo e África do Sul, em Maputo, para deliberarem naquilo que ficou conhecido como a Declaração de Maputo sobre como proteger a floresta de Miombo e como extrair valor econômico dessa floresta. Desde então, o governo de Moçambique, liderado pelo presidente Filipe Jacinto Nyusi como campeão de desastres da União Africana, tem promovido a causa de Miombo. Em Sharm el-Sheikh, anunciou-se essa iniciativa no COP27. Em 2023, em Abu Dhabi, houve uma reunião muito importante onde se debateu a questão de Miombo, e eu me recordo muito bem, o presidente Adesina esteve nesse encontro, juntamente com outros dignatários, onde se realçou que Miombo é uma floresta que deve ser vista como uma floresta deve ser protegida, mas também tem um valor econômico bastante na criação das riquezas das nações. Em abril passado, houve uma conferência em Washington, onde investidores também foram convidados para debater como podemos fazer investimentos em Miombo. Portanto, o presidente Adesina estava a falar do valor do Congo Basin. Estima-se que são 55 bilhões de dólares por ano que ele providencia na captura de carbono do Congo. Miombo também pode ser uma dessas fontes de geração dessa receita que nós precisamos de calcular. Então, Moçambique também tem feito progressos significativos na medição da riqueza verde das nações. É um dos poucos países que já tem uma estratégia de desenvolvimento do capital natural, que é o principal instrumento que garante a geração de investimentos verdes e a criação da riqueza das nações. Finalmente, eu queria falar sobre alguns procedimentos que nós temos levado em conta para valorizar a riqueza, o capital natural que não é contabilizado. Algumas iniciativas que nós temos. Temos duas iniciativas que já introduzimos no país. Uma conhecida como Debt for Climate Swaps e a outra é de Carbon Credits. Na primeira iniciativa de Debt for Climate Swap, o que nós tentamos fazer é tornar a dívida um investimento. E como que nós fazemos isso? Fizemos um projeto piloto com a Bélgica, onde a parte da dívida que nós temos, estimada em 2,4 milhões, é convertida em investimento climático. Também se estima que Moçambique tem cerca de 900 milhões de eurobonds que podem ser utilizados para Debt for Climate Swaps. Finalmente, os créditos de carbono, nos últimos 15 anos, Moçambique tem investido significativamente em recursos para gerar os créditos de carbono através de um mecanismo chamado RED, que é, portanto, redução de emissões por desflorescimento e degradação das florestas. E em 2025, nós tornamos no primeiro país a receber 6,4 milhões de dólares do Banco Mundial sobre um projeto, uma facilidade chamada Forest Carbon Partnership Facility. Nós reduzimos 1,2 milhões de toneladas de CO desde 2019. Mas como o presidente Adesina também dizia, nós pensamos que esse valor até podia ser alto se fosse comercializados em mercados mais maduros, que nós vemos que tem mais preço avançado. A Africa Carbon Market Initiative também estima que Moçambique pode gerar entre 10 a 25 milhões de carbono crédito por ano a partir de 2030, com um valor estimado de 200 a 500 milhões de dólares. Portanto, essas são as coisas concretas que estão a acontecer e para nós concordamos com a nova abordagem de que a medida atual de GDP como a riqueza das nações pode ser melhorada com uma nova abordagem que inclui a medição dos recursos ou do capital natural. A terminar mesmo, gostaria de convidar o Banco Africano, que eu sei tem uma direção de gestão de recursos naturais, a promover iniciativas que possam nos garantir ou possam nos levar a medir ou criar um índice que possa nos fazer medir a riqueza verde das nações. E podemos converter essa riqueza verde das nações em algo que tenha benefício econômico para os países, principalmente como o nosso em desenvolvimento, e que estão comprometidos grandemente com a defesa do planeta através de ações de financiamento climático. O financiamento climático é escasso, é caro e também tem que ser reformado. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Magala. A big round of applause to Honorable Magala. He promised here, African countries are already acting on it in order to make the green wealth of Africa work for Africa's development. Honorable Magala spoke about preservation of forests, tying in with what our first panelist talked about, and also the issue about having a national strategy for valuing the value of forests, investing in valuation, which is key for us to be able to know the value of our green wealth in order to convert it into wealth. But he also talked specifically of an instrument on climate and debt for climate swaps and also the carbon markets. That gives me a good segue to transition to the Vice President for Power, Energy, Climate Change, and Green Growth in Africa. In your view, how would the carbon markets and using climate, debt for climate swaps help in valuing, deriving better value from Africa's green wealth?
Thank you very much, Prof. First of all, I think the hypothesis that we have that we could actually greatly enhance the value of our economies through our nature assets is borne by some real facts that I have here. For example, today, the value of the global carbon market is $1 trillion. And although Africa accounts for 23% of the forest carbon, to date, Africa has only accrued only about $200 million, which is about maybe 2% of the global carbon finance market. So in my view, I do agree that this is the way to go, especially considering that in the past, as part of the CDM mechanism, Africa only accounted for only 2% of the global CDM market. CDM market. So which means that throughout we have been shortchanged as far as playing in the market is concerned. And therefore, I do believe that in this current carbon market, we should be able to utilize the assets that we have. For example, if you look at just some of our natural resources, such as hydro, we have 350 gigawatts of hydro potential on the continent. We have only harnessed about less than 7%. If you look at solar, which President Adesina spoke about, we have 60% of the world's best solar potential, amounting to about 10 terawatts or 10,000 gigawatts. I think these are assets that we should be able to value, because I do believe that our hydro, our solar potential are part of our natural assets. And in this particular case, I would say that I am also aware of significant efforts that are being made to interconnect Africa with Europe and export some of these renewable energy sources that we are getting from, that we are going to be generating in Northern Africa. For example, I know there are two links that are being proposed to connect Algeria and Tunisia with Italy, as well as a number of cables of connecting, again, in this particular case, Morocco with Europe. And this, I think, this will generate sufficient value that could go into complementing or enhancing the value of our, because of course it means that we will be able to generate significant carbon credits associated with those generation. I think I'll stop there, Prof.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Big round of applause for Vice President Kariuki. Very practical suggestions being put on the table. African countries, basically, what I hear you say is use the natural assets we have to generate what we need in energy, in agriculture, and other things, but also exploiting the value of the carbon credits that we have within our natural forests and other natural capital that we do have. At this stage, let me also invite to the podium Gunnar Collin, who is the Director for the Environment for Development in the University of Gothenburg in Sweden. Gunnar has worked several years on this subject and is leading a big network of experts around the world, basically trying to turn nature into wealth. So Gunnar, you're welcome to the panel. And let me transition to Amadou Hott. Amadou Hott, you've been a minister in Senegal, a vice president for power, climate change, energy, and green goods at the African Development Bank, and an avid practitioner in the private sector. From the wealth of experience you have, what do you have to add to this conversation?
Thank you very much, Kevin. For me, this is the most transformational initiative for Africa if we are to transform our economies, create wealth, and fast-track our development. Anything we can do to implement this initiative, I think will be, for me, the silver bullet in transforming the continent. So I would like really to congratulate Mr. President for having been a champion on this issue at least over the last 2 years, I would say. African governments have a very big role to play for me. Number one, in the same way that our ministries of finance and economy are taking very seriously all the other assets that our governments have, those same ministries should take very seriously this nature capital that we have. And I don't think it is the case today, because the value of these assets are not recognized today. And I think Governor Bobin mentioned that by saying that we need to protect and evaluate these assets. And if we manage to do that and extract the value that we can extract, I think this will be taken more seriously. But for that to happen, the carbon pricing must be fair. Mr. President mentioned the wide gap between the price of carbon in Europe and the price of carbon in Africa. If we were to move up even by 100%, double the price of carbon in Africa, or bring it to $50, for example, I think that will be a game changer for Africa. Concrete recommendations would be, in the same way that ministries of finance, let's say, know all the other assets of the country, let's say oil assets, real estate assets, whatever other assets that Africa has, our ministries of finance, they know it. Today is not the case. So our green asset that we have, we need to have the Ministry of Finance to be, let's say, the supervisor, with the sector minister being, let's say, the supervisor on the technical side. Today, if you have oil and gas assets, you have two ministries managing them. The Ministry of Energy or Oil and Gas, but then you have also the Ministry of Finance. But for these nature assets, it's only the Ministry of Environment that is looking after these assets. So that has to change, number one. Number two, I think also the world needs to give more value to this asset in the same way that it is giving more value to oil and gas. Oil and gas producing countries are making billions of dollars, if not trillions, by selling oil and gas to the world, while oil and gas also is having negative effect to the world as well. So we need to have a process where our nature assets also can be bought around the world on markets that are very fair. In the same way that we have transparent oil and gas market, we need to have transparent oil and gas transparent carbon market as well, to make sure that these nature assets that we have are getting the right value. If we have that, I believe that I think this will be a game changer for Africa. And again, let's make sure that our ministries of finance and economy are really working closely with us to make sure that the carbon value of our assets is really taken into account. And last, when we reach that level where the carbon credit is priced properly, I think African governments and countries need to meet to agree on a formula so that all these African countries that don't have that value, that carbon sink, because it's not all African countries that will sort of benefit from this process. Many African countries don't have any carbon sink, don't have any trees, so will be in disadvantage compared to the others. So let's have a formula internally among African countries so that we can have some transfer of wealth from these green assets properly priced to the African countries that do not have enough, so that we don't widen the gap among African countries as well. But the advocacy should be done by all African countries through the African Union as well, with the bank also playing a key leadership role, and our seat of the African Union at the at the G20 also being used to really harness this idea of the African Development Bank and push for the implementation over the next years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause. Thank you very much, Amadou Hott. Very clear points on the table as well. Governments, African governments, and I love this. When we're discussing issues about Africa and we're actually thinking home on what we need to do in order to make it happen, I get excited. Thank you, Amadou Hott, for that. It says governments must take natural assets seriously. And this could not be better put, because if you look at the value of the global market value of only 3 green minerals, a lot of which is found in Africa, we find that the estimated value of nickel, copper, cobalt, and lithium alone is estimated to reach $16 trillion by 2030. And business as usual will only allow Africa to harness about 10% of this value. The rest goes to those who add value to the natural capital, which Governor Robin called for, the VP Kariuki called for. All the panelists have called for that. Second, if you look at our AUO 2022, the estimates of the carbon credits for African countries is about $4.6 trillion by 2050. Again, with clear pricing of carbon in the global markets, having a fair pricing of carbon in the global markets, this will be tremendous wealth for Africa, converting the positive externality, the positive value, public good we will provide by sequestering carbon for the world, turning it into assets for the continent. And then, Amadou Hott, you also talked about a critical thing, that we should not leave the green wealth of Africa to ministers of environment. We should make it at the center stage of fiscal policy planning in countries by getting the ministers of finance to take the greatest asset that Africa has seriously. And then you also talked about advocacy. Advocacy is very important, and that will lead to why I've called Gunnar Collin to the table. Because while we know that natural assets are natural capital are natural assets, the transitioning of those natural assets to the GDP of countries has a lot of methodological loops that we have to work on to turn the stocks into flow. Because unless your tree becomes furniture, you don't get money from the markets for it. And as long as you are not making money, GDP will not measure it. And what do we do in Africa? Mostly, we sell logs of wood at very low prices, low value addition, and we import furniture at very high prices, high value addition, so you have a net negative contribution to our GDP for the assets we have. Gunnar Collin, let me ask you, having worked on this subject for quite a long time, how can we turn our stocks into flow? And how can we have a global methodology that is accepted in order to allow this be feeding into the national systems of accounts so that it contributes to our GDP? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you all for being here. This is such a timely event, and I really, as a globalist, and also I love Africa so much, I really appreciate how the AFDB is taking the lead on this. So this has, of course, been an issue for a long time. We feel that not enough attention has been given to these natural resources and ecosystem services. And of course, this has been boiling. GDP has been criticized for decades, we know that. And the AFDB is now looking carefully into how this could be done, and I'm supporting that work. So for some time now, and many of you are of course aware of that, there have been satellite accounts bringing first the central framework with the core resources. So that came more than a decade ago, and then increasingly there have been attempts globally to bring also ecosystem services into the system of national accounts in this so-called system of environment economic accounting, SEA. So this has also been done to a certain extent in African countries, but only, say, 7 countries so far in Africa have actually started to use, for example, the ecosystem services accounts. But the methodology is there, and it's rapidly increasing. And there is also a lot of attention given to this. But what we really, really need now is much more capacity to actually do this. It's fantastic with the political commitment. That is essential. But that also needs to be translated into new positions in your statistics departments and new data collection. And the beauty of this, I think, will be not only reaching that final adjusted GDP number, but rather with all this data on board and all the analysis that your colleagues will be able to do with it, you will be able to manage these resources much, much better. And you will also then start to see this gap. I think the motivation by going from resource to more value added, with a better handle of the stock, you will also see, what you're losing if you're just ruining the environment, but also you will see the potential in bringing this to value added. Kevin, can I say something on the carbon markets too?
Yes, please.
Because here and in many other places too, there is a lot of expectation, and I was fortunate enough to work with the Vice President and his team last year on the African Economic Outlook 2023. And there we were looking at how the resources were utilized, but also the potential in international agreements. And we pointed out exactly this wedge that has been described here between the voluntary carbon markets on the one hand and for example, the ETS, which is a formalized market for carbon credits in Europe. And of course, as also the President here pointed out, the wedge is huge. But it is also huge for a number of reasons. And please remember, at the COP in Dubai, they didn't agree on the Paris rulebook on how to actually implement Article 6. So there's a long way to go. So I would really, really recommend the AFDB, but also the governments here in Africa to look carefully into how ready are you in terms of institutions so that you can really take stock. Because now, unfortunately, there is a reason why there is a sale on carbon credits in Africa, and that needs to be addressed. I really would like to echo the President's notes that it's, this carbon grab. Sure, you need to be watchful now, but you also need to develop your institutions so that you really can benefit from this, and you also need to put pressure on the next COP to come with very clear guidelines and finalize the Paris rulebook for the implementation of Article 6 as part of the Paris Agreement. I think I'll stop there, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Big round of applause for Gunnar. We can see very clear things here. One is valuing the ecosystem services that this natural capital deliver so that can be included in the systems of national accounts. A lot of methodologies for doing this already exists. Gunnar and I have worked on this for like 20-something years, and many colleagues around the world. So those methodologies are there. It's now for countries to actually take those methodologies and apply them. And I'm happy to say that several countries on this continent are doing a lot of great work in terms of improving their natural capital accounting capabilities, including our host country today, the Republic of Kenya. Now, capacity building becomes, therefore, very central. Capacity building not only for the ministers of finance to take it seriously as a national asset, but also for the national bureaus of statistics, for the statisticians to be able to now start working on how to do these natural systems of natural capital accounting, and then including them in their own social accounting matrices. Because until that is done, then it cannot be used for calculations of your GDP. But also, Buguna also calls again for the same word, value adding. We need to add value to our natural capital, because when you do and turn it to produced assets, then it automatically gets into the market and it will be easily picked by your statisticians and put into your social accounting matrices. So it becomes a national asset in your GDP. But again, carbon markets. And what I'm hearing, voluntary carbon markets, and I'm wondering, we all talk about climate change and existential threat. We have climate COPs now for 27 years, going to 28 years. And the price, what's the product that we are trading on, which is carbon, we don't have a standard global price for carbon. Why is there that mispricing of carbon? Just like the mispricing of risks in Africa. Why is carbon costing less in Africa than in other parts of the world? There are several econometrics and economic reasons for this, but for us to take climate change and climate green transition seriously, we need to have a fair pricing for carbon. And because when we do, then the positive externalities of forests that sequesters carbon, a global public good that is being delivered, becomes a national good that goes into our national systems of accounts. And also, for activities that actually create negative externalities on climate, which we all worry about, can then be penalized. And countries will take policies for climate transitions more seriously when the positive or negative externalities of their activities are considered. But if this doesn't happen, a country that has forests then should then cut them down and create furniture so that they can get more money that goes into their national systems of accounts. So voluntariness of the carbon market, for me, calls to question our seriousness about climate transitions. So I think the actions are cut out for us on how to address this issue. It's challenging, interesting, but timely. If we are serious about green transitions, we should be serious about including green assets into the green wealth of nations. And I'll echo the voice of the panelists in appreciating President Adesina, the visionary-in-chief for Africa, our evangelist-in-chief and optimist-in-chief, for pushing strongly for this to happen. And with that, in 2 minutes, I give the floor to you, VP Kariuki. You are responsible for power, green growth, energy, and climate change, where all these issues is like the crucible for all these issues and preserving our green wealth. What are your final words based on what you've heard from the panelists?
I think, first of all, the vision, we must deliver on the vision of the president, because it is very clear that we have been shortchanged. It's very clear, as you also indicated, that the difference between voluntary carbon market and the statutory carbon market, the price differences is too big. And therefore, it's important that we make sure that we have mechanisms of ensuring that that disparity is closely bridged. That's number one. And number two, when it comes to the carbon credits that will accrue from the amounts of renewable energies that we have on the continent. As the President said, we have abundance of renewable energy. More than 60% of Africa's, or the world's best renewable energy sources. We must ensure that the carbon credits that accrue from these investments are also priced correctly. Because as I said, under the Clean Development Mechanism that was there under Kyoto Protocol, those credits, Africa only accounted for 2%. And therefore, it is important that we have right pricing of these carbon credits so that at the end of the day, there is significant improvement in the revenue that will accrue from these investments, especially on renewable. And when it comes, of course, to the issue of looking at where we are going, especially on the carbon credits, yesterday we joined what was mentioned by Minister Magala, the Africa Carbon Markets Initiative. And the idea here is to ensure that we provide thought leadership on the continent on how we are going to be valuing these carbon credits. Because without that, without a concerted and coherent approach to the carbon credits, then we will always be underpriced. And therefore, this is something that we are taking leadership upon, and we will be working, of course, with your complex to make sure that the continent has a coherent approach on the valuation of these carbon credits. Let me stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A big round of applause for those closing remarks. And with that, the call to action is clear. African governments to take seriously the Africa Carbon Market Initiative, African bureaus of statistics to take seriously natural systems, natural capital accounting, and including that into your national systems of accounts, the global community to listen and try to encourage and support this effort of greening the wealth of nations so that green transitions can happen faster. And let me again re-echo the President Adesina's appreciation of the support and advocacy by President Sassou Nguesso, President William Ruto, and many, many of our heads of states who have taken this seriously. I think the job is cut out for us, and let's make it happen. Thank you.